Welcome to Tibalt's Apprentice. I'm lucky enough to have Max back again with me this week. And what deck are we going to be talking about this time?
So today we are talking about Korvold Fae-Cursed King.
Ah, okay. Before we do that, hate to spring this on you, but I'm going to start with a lab report.
Okay.
So we'll watch this cool graphic that I just made. Anyhow, so we talked about this before, but in this week's lab report, this is hard-won battle research that was gained while playing at, actually this was at the Game Chest in Delamo.
Okay.
In Delamo Mall.
Okay.
So the lab report is simply keywords are king. Now, we've talked about keywords on here before, and these are two specific examples. Now, full disclosure, I lost both these games.
Okay.
But there's two examples of keywords, and it doesn't really matter how we got to that point. But for example, off of a basic landfall trigger, 14 points of damage.
What?
10 points of damage, easily killed one person out of the game.
Wow.
And some damage to spread over to the next person.
That's impressive.
That's one thing. Next game that we played ended with a land walk. Well, it ended shortly after this for me, but I was able to swing in for 20 plus points of damage to the face.
Wow.
Nothing that they could do about it.
Wow, impressive.
Now, obviously, we've talked about keywords and how important they are, but what I'm taking away from this in this lab report is it's important to re-examine my decks with specific keywords in mind.
Yeah.
Either keywords that can be exploited or keywords that maybe aren't used.
Or the keyword of exploit if you want to go that route.
Well, actually, that will come up later in another video. But the fact is that, for example, if you have a lot of spells in your deck and you don't have a lot of creatures, could those creatures be made better by making them flyers with prowess? Small little keywords like that can make a big difference. And so I plan on re-examining my decks and looking for keyword improvements that I can make that would make the deck just a little bit more efficient.
Sounds good.
And that's this week's lab report. So now that we're back, let's talk about this deck. This actually wasn't what I was expecting you to do, but it's all about the unexpected here on Tibalt's Apprentice.
Oh, yeah.
So where do you want to start with this one?
So before we get into the meat of the deck, I do have one combo that I would like to talk about because I usually don't play infinite combos in my decks, but this one was too fun to ignore. So this is actually like the third or fourth version of this deck. I've been tinkering around with it. Mm-hmm. So the combo is Fae-Cursed the Unhallowed, Murderous Redcap, and any free sack outlet. So the combo works like this. First of all, let's read Fae-Cursed the Unhallowed. So he costs 3 black. He's got Intimidate. That's not the important part. So the other important part is other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. So Undying is the important part here. So when a creature with Undying dies, if it had no +1/+1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. So Murderous Redcap says, when Murderous Redcap comes into play, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. Now, you're obviously going to be targeting players.
Right, obviously.
So this creature also has Persist. So here's where Fae-Cursed comes into play. So Fae-Cursed is on the board. You cast the Murderous Redcap. You then sack it. It comes back with a -1/-1 counter because of Persist. But because it had no +1/+1 counters on it, it actually also gets the Undying. So the counters cancel out. It has no counters on it. It's a 2/2. You sack it infinitely, and you kill everybody at the table.
Very nice. So two things. First of all, how does your play group feel about infinite combos?
It's hit or miss depending on exactly who's there that day. For the most part, we're okay with one.
Okay.
As long as you don't do it every single game.
Right,
That's
sure,
not cool.
sure, right. Okay. And then the other thing is how easily can you get that off?
It depends.
It seems like it'd be mana intensive.
For this deck, it's a little tricky, but there are a couple of tutors to help me out. There's a combo piece in here that I'll get into a little bit later that will find any of these cards. I have Yahenni Undying Partisan as my example free sack outlet.
Okay.
But yeah, it will find combo pieces. I have a couple of tutors to kind of get my board set up if I need to, if I wanted to pull this particular combo off.
Okay, so getting into the meat of the deck, where do you start here?
So we'll start with stuff that sacks stuff for free when it comes in. So my favorite one, since I mentioned tutors, we'll start with the first one, Sidisi Undead Vizier.
Okay.
So she costs 3 black. She's got Death Touch and Exploit. So when she exploits a creature, you sacrifice that creature, and then you're able to find any card in the deck that you want and put it in your hand.
Nice.
Which is exactly what Korvold wants to do. Actually, we didn't even read Korvold.
Right, actually, let's throw that up on the screen and see what we got.
Yeah, so before we get any further, Korvold Fae-Cursed King, 2 black, red, and green, so Jund, for a flying 4/4 Dragon Noble. And when Korvold when it enters a battlefield or attacks, you sacrifice another permanent. So that's very clearly what this deck wants to do. It's kind of an aristocrat-style deck.
Right.
Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, you put a +1/+1 counter on Korvold and draw a card. So any commander, as I mentioned in the last video, any commander that says draw a card is absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
But in this deck, we kind of just abuse that. So there are a few ways to win. You can make Korvold huge.
Right.
And swing that way. He's a flyer. Flyers are really annoying to deal with. Or you can sack for value and just kind of overrun the game that way. So let's get back into the meat. So the next card I have here is God Eternal Bantu. So when it enters, you're able to sacrifice any number of permanents and draw that many cards.
Right.
Which is already what Korvold wants to do. So if Korvold's here, you're just drawing a billion cards, basically, making them huge. So we have Shriekmaw, which you never pay for its regular cost. You always evoke it. Because when you evoke it, fun fact, I didn't realize this, it sacrifices itself. So that's what Korvold wants to do, which is amazing. And we have a couple more. We have Fleshbag Marauder and Plague Crafter kind of do the same thing. When they come in, everybody sacks a creature.
Right.
Plague Crafter can actually force people to sacrifice Planeswalkers, though, so he's that much better.
Just a minute.
And Lotus Field, which is my favorite land in the deck because it comes in and you sacrifice 2 lands, and it taps for 3 mana of any one color.
Right.
So you're sacrificing lands, drawing cards, making mana, just doing a billion things. So the next category I kind of have here is free sack outlets. They don't sacrifice themselves, but they do sacrifice other stuff. Actually, a couple of these do sacrifice themselves. Stuff you sack for free. So Ashnod's Altar and Altar of Dementia, obviously. I wish I had a Phyrexian Altar. I don't. Very soon. TBD.
There you go.
Spore Frog, which is kind of cool because you fog the board. Nobody can take combat damage that turn. And Sakura Tribe Elder, or Steve, if you prefer.
Really quick, so the frog, what set is that?
I actually don't know. This is kind of an older art of Spore Frog. It did get reprinted in Modern Horizons.
Okay.
This is an older one. I'm actually not sure where this is from.
I recognize the crystal gems in there, but it's probably from about the time that I got out of Magic for a while.
Okay.
But Sacrifice Spore Frog, I'm looking for this, of course, because I need to add it to one of my decks at this point, so I should be taking notes.
Absolutely. Spore Frog, super good card. I play it in most of my green decks, but in this one particularly, it's really, really good.
So really quick then, how do you come across these cards that you're looking for? So you found them. Are you going by suggestions of friends, or what do you use to research these cards?
Well, I actually have had a couple of decks that are kind of aristocrat style, so I have had most of these cards that like to sacrifice things and gain value from that. Some of them I did have to do research on, like TCG Player and like EDH Rec and stuff like that. Tapped Out is my favorite one.
Okay.
And a lot of them I do just know about through experience and stuff. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right, so moving on, we'll go to Vraska, which is our last sack things for free card. Vraska Golgari Queen. There are a few Vraskas. This is important. So her +2 first ability says you may sacrifice another permanent. If you do, you gain 1 life and draw a card, which is, again, exactly what this deck wants to be doing. So I thought it'd be super fun. And if your playgroup ignores you completely and you get to ult, the emblem says that whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. Nobody's going to let you ult. Spoiler alert.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody's going to ignore you that long.
No, spoiler alert, you will never ult Vraska. But if you happen to proliferate or something like that.
Exactly.
So the next category is stuff that does stuff when stuff dies. There's a lot of stuff in this deck. I don't know if you are catching on to a theme here. So this one isn't a die trigger, but it is a sack trigger. So it's an honorary does stuff when stuff dies, because it's the Gitrog monster.
Nice.
So Gitrog costs 3 black and green, and I'm sidetracked for 1 second. As a commander on its own, this is absolutely a ridiculous commander.
It's a deck that I had thought about building.
Absolutely,
So I'm interested to see him in the deck here.
Yes, absolutely a powerful card. So we'll keep going. Gitrog. So it has Death Touch. It's a 6/6 body, which is not bad for 5.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of your upkeep, you sacrifice the Gitrog monster unless you sacrifice a land. So again, there's that important word of sacrifice.
Right.
So you sack the land, you draw an extra card, and you don't mind sacking the lands because the third part of his text says you may play an additional land on each of your turns. So it's okay.
Okay.
You're good. And also, whenever one or more lands are put into your graveyard from anywhere, draw a card. So there's a very powerful sack things, gain value, draw a lot of cards, keep going.
Right.
So this deck has a very powerful engine in that way.
Would you consider this a competitive deck or just a competitive fun deck?
I would say that I want it to be a competitive deck. It's on its way.
It's on its verge.
It's on its way.
Okay.
If it's not competitive yet, it's getting there.
Gotcha.
So we have a lot of stuff that does stuff when creatures die. Sir Conrad the Grim is another one of these cards from Throne of Eldraine that I absolutely just fell in love with. And this, spoilers, actually came with the Brawl deck that this is from.
Nice.
So we'll read Sir Conrad the Grim. 3 black, and whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature leaves your graveyard, so if you're recurring stuff,
Nice.
Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent.
Nice.
So you're just sacrificing things, killing everybody at the table. Oh, hey, someone's got a mill deck? Oh, that's a shame. You're losing all your creatures. Everyone's taking damage for that, by the way.
Right.
So just a nasty card. And I have a few of these, I don't know what they call them. Well, I'm going to call it Blood Artist effects, because Blood Artist is probably the most famous.
It's the most recognizable
It's the most recognizable. Yeah. So we have, they do things when creatures die. They deal damage when creatures die. Right. So Blood Artist, when it or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. Zulaport Cutthroat does the same thing. Falconwrath Noble and Vindictive Vampire do just about the same thing. They're dealing damage when creatures are dying, and you're gaining life off that.
Nice.
Mayhem Devil, which is a similar card that is also from Throne of Eldraine. I'm looking at the symbol here. It's 1 red-black, and whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, it deals 1 damage to any target.
Nice.
So if there's some pesky planeswalkers on the board, anything like that.
I like that.
Uh-huh.
I hate planeswalkers. I like that.
Okay. So we also have Moldervine Reclamation. So this is from M20, which is pretty cool. It's 3 black and green for an enchantment that whenever a creature you control dies, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Again, there's that life gain engine, there's a card draw engine. You just pretty much try not to run out of gas in this deck. Right. And with all this card draw, it's kind of hard to.
Now, does this win on a single turn, or does it build?
It can if it's, I wouldn't say early game, but if it's about mid game, it has the potential to just kill
Go off at any point
yeah.
and just kill everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
If your ramp is there and your setup is there, you absolutely can win.
Right.
In 1 turn. So we have Skull Clamp. Usually I would put this card in a token deck, but because I'm sacrificing so many things, I kind of just equip it, and then when I'm ready, I just draw the cards and keep going.
Keep going, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have some of these, I think they call them Edict effects. We have Butcher Malakir, Grave Pact, and Dictate of Erebos.
Dictate of Erebos.
Which all 3 of these cards do exactly the same thing. Whenever, Butcher is this effect on a stick. So when it or another creature dies that you control, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos do the same thing.
Right.
I'm sacrificing creatures and you're sacrificing. If I have all these, you're sacrificing 3 at a time.
Nice.
So, and then I have my favorite, which is a combo piece that I mentioned earlier in the video. Protean Hulk.
Not unbanned not too long ago, right?
Yeah. Protean Hulk is back.
Yeah.
And I love it. So when it dies, you search your library for any number of creature cards with a total converted mana cost of 6 or less, and you put them on the battlefield. Putting them not in your hand, but on the battlefield is super important.
Exactly.
And super powerful.
Yeah.
So this is one of those combo pieces that just allows me to just steamroll everybody. Yeah, so we have a little bit of Sacrifice Ramp. And yeah, well, I guess I'll call it Sacrifice Ramp because you pay to sacrifice things and then you get lands. So Myriad Landscape, obviously include Armillary Sphere, which usually I wouldn't like this card very much, but because it says sacrifice, I was okay with it.
Okay.
You sacrifice it, you draw the card, and then it's 2 for an artifact, and then you pay 2 and tap it for So you sacrifice it, and then you search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, and put them in your hand. So it's ramping you.
The great thing about not only this, but like a card like that and so many others is they have a home in EDH where they don't have one anywhere else necessarily. When the sets that they came out with or whatever, they maybe were overlooked or ignored. At this point, though, with Commander, you can reach all the way back there and pull out these things that at some point had overreaching effects that were just seemed terrible at the time or didn't have a use for them, but in the right deck, makes all the difference for sure.
Absolutely. Like, I couldn't see this card being good in like standard or modern or any other format, but in Commander and in this deck specifically, or decks that like to sacrifice things, I could see it definitely doing a lot of work, and it has for me. And then the last card in this category is, I call him Sir Ian McKellen because the art looks just like him. It's really funny to me. The card is actually called Yavimaya Elder. It's 1 green for a human druid, and when it dies, you may search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them in your hand, so kind of the same thing as our Armillary Sphere. You can pay 2 and sacrifice it and draw a card. So you're drawing cards off of his effect, off of Korvold's effect, and then you're also ramping. So I thought this card was really, really cool.
Absolutely. If there's any point where it looks like you're running out of gas or whatever, you can get that extra. Sometimes all you need is that one more card, and that's going to give you that shot at it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the next category that I have here, I don't have as large a package as I would like. There are a couple more cards I'm probably going to include in this deck. Reanimate, Victimize, and there was another one that I can't think of on the spot right now, but there needs to be a solid level of recursion in this deck to keep it going.
Right.
Because once you sacrifice things, that's cool, but if you don't have a way to get them back, you kind of run out of gas.
Yeah.
So the first one I'll talk about here is Whisper Blood Liturgist. It is 3 in black for a human cleric, and you can tap it, sacrifice 2 creatures, and return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, to the battlefield, again, not in your hand, but to the battlefield is so important in this deck. So I thought that was super cool. There's a lot of... this is actually a combo piece for me sometimes, depending on the way I have it set up. So I can just loop things sometimes. So Eternal Witness, because when it enters the battlefield, you just return any card from your graveyard to your hand, and in some cases, that's really, really important. It might not be a creature that you're looking for. Stitch Together, because I have Threshold more times than not.
I learned to love that with the Lord Windgrace deck.
Yes,
absolutely. I really learned to appreciate that
Absolutely,
power.
And me too. It's a great card. I actually didn't know about this card before Commander 18.
Okay.
So if you don't know what it does, it returns a target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. But if you have Threshold, which means 7 or more cards in your graveyard, which I do at all times just about, it returns that card to the battlefield instead.
Nice.
So that's pretty awesome.
Right.
We have a Golgari Findbroker, which is black, green. And when it enters the battlefield, you return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, which is still pretty good. It can keep you rolling.
Yeah.
We have Find Finality. I only ever cast the Find part, so it's 2 hybrid green and black to return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, which is pretty good. And then I count this kind of as recursion because it can recur itself. Reassembling Skeleton. So you can pay 1 in black. Well, it costs 1 in black, but you can also pay 1 in black to return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So if you need more sack fodder, you just bring it back and keep going. So yeah, it's like I said, I would like a little more recursion in this deck. TBD. Coming soon to a Korvold near you.
Yes.
So the last category I have here is the ramp. So especially in a green deck, super important. And a lot of these cards are mana intensive. Like Reassembling Skeleton only costs 2, but it costs 2 every time you want to use its ability. Machias the Unhallowed costs 6. Protean Hulk costs 7. So a lot of these cards are really big. So you want to get the lands out as quickly as possible. And you want to make as much mana as you can so you can just keep going and just overrun everybody.
Right.
So the first card I'll mention is actually one I've never seen anyone play in EDH, Growth Spasm. So I thought this was kind of cool for this deck because it lets you search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, so it kind of does the Kodama's Reach thing.
Right.
But it also gives you a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn that lets you sacrifice it for a colorless mana.
That was something I was going to ask you after you had gotten through this and stuff, was if you had any token generators or any, because there are so many like this that will give you something that you can then sack for mana.
Yes, I do have a couple. So They're not up here on the table, but I do also have Open the Graves, which is an enchantment that when a creature you control dies, a non-token creature you control dies, it makes 2/2 zombies.
Nice.
And I also have Pawn of Ulamog, which does a similar thing. So when it or another creature you control dies, it makes these 0/1 Eldrazi spawns.
Right.
And I had one more. It wasn't... it was another thing that did the same thing. It makes 1/1 Eldrazi Scions, and all of those, you sacrifice them for colorless mana. Again, there's that important word, sacrifice. So
Right.
I thought those were all really, really cool cards in the deck. But yeah, so Growth Spasm I thought was really cool. I don't have Kodama's Reach, so this is my makeshift
That'll do in the
Kodama's Reach.
meantime. Okay.
And so next I have Tempt with Discovery, which you should always say no to. Always say no.
So you told me a story about this, and evidently everybody else was mana screwed at the table and
Yes.
needed it. I can't believe that.
I was able to get actually 5 lands. I think we were playing a 5-player game, and I got 5 lands out of
Oh my
5
gosh.
on this card.
Wow.
I'm going to read it, because if you've never seen this card before, you probably haven't been playing EDH very long, and you should add this card to all your green decks. So it's 3 and green for a sorcery with Tempting Offer. So you search your library for a land card. First of all, land card.
Sure.
Any land that you want. If you have Bajuka Bog, if you have Cabal Coffers, Urborg, anything like that, that's what you're searching for. So put it onto the battlefield. Not tapped. If it's a land that doesn't come in tapped, it won't come in tapped. So each opponent may search his or her library for a land card and put it onto the battlefield. So that's cool. So it's kind of a group hug card, but it also has a stipulation that says for each opponent who searches a library this way, search your library for a land card and put it onto the battlefield.
So sure, I get something for it, but you're getting twice as much out of it.
Absolutely.
All
Or-
those tempt cards are great, but I can't believe you got that many off that.
Yeah, I just
Wow.
played it at the correct time, and everybody at the table really needed the land, so
Okay.
I ended up getting 5 lands off of this, and it just kind of propelled me way into the lead,
Nice.
way further than I should have been. But it ended up doing a lot of work. I was impressed. I went, "Wow, really? Everyone's giving me the land? Okay,
Sure, I'll take it.
I'll take it." So next up, we have Explosive Veggies or Explosive Vegetation for 3 and green. It's a sorcery. So you search for up to 2 basic lands, and you put them on the battlefield tapped. Pretty good. So you ramp 2 at a time, and the next turn you're basically 3 lands ahead.
Right.
If you're making land drops. We have Farseek. So this lets you find any land that is of the plains, island, swamp, or mountain type.
Right.
It won't let you find a forest, but I cheat this out anyway, because
Right.
I just go grab a Overgrown Tomb or
Exactly.
just go grab a dual land. You're good.
Yep.
Or shock land, anything like that. So next up is Soul Ring.
It's all right. Because
Soul
Commander.
Ring. Yeah, you have to. And all 3 signets, so Golgari, Rakdos, and Gruul signet.
Nice.
And I'm actually playing the brand new signet from Throne of Eldraine, the Arcane signet, which I have found to be so useful.
Nice.
So it's 2. If you've never seen it, it costs 2 for an artifact that says tap, add 1 mana of any color to your commander's color identity. So it's basically Commander Sphere for 2
Yep.
that you can't sack to grab mana. Or
Right.
grab cards.
Right.
So yeah, it's really good. I also do have Commander Sphere in here. I know it's not up here at the table. You sacrifice it, draw a card. Also
All right.
really good. Also really, really good in this deck.
Definitely. So a fair win rate with this deck, or
You know what?
do people know to look for it? Do people know what's coming at this point?
So it's been long enough, I think, that people kind of know how the deck works and they want to try to stop it. But if I just steamroll too quickly, they just can't.
Well, if they're giving you 5 lands in the turn,
Exactly.
well, of course.
That game, no one was able to stop me because, yeah, they needed the
They-
lands, but then I was so far ahead, it didn't matter that they
Exactly.
got lands. I just kind of all right, well, I'm going to do all these things, and everyone's dead.
Nice.
So,
Very nice. All right. Well, thanks for coming on again.
yes, absolutely.
I appreciate it.
I had a lot of fun,
If you have a deck better than this one,
hopefully.
if you do, come on and talk about it. I'd love to hear about it. If you have suggestions for cards that maybe are overlooked, we'll try to get a deck list at some point.
Yeah, deck list
so-
should be coming very soon. I'll
Okay.
have it up on Tapped Out.
When we do get it and stuff, I'll add it to the show notes. In the meantime, always I'd like you, of course, to like, comment, and subscribe. Most important of those, I will say, is subscribe. You don't have to hit the notification bell unless you like the content. If you do, definitely. But just hit the subscribe no matter what. And it would help me out a lot as we try to grow the channel.
Absolutely.
And more importantly, I want other people, not that I don't want to have Max here again,
Yeah.
but there's always room for more. I think there's room for more Magic content, there's room for more decks, and there's room for you sitting at the table with me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching.